First and foremost, I do want to apologize if I sound a little bit off or a little bit weird. I'm trying out a new setup to record audio, and hopefully this sounds a lot more better for this type of video. Now, if you've been living under a rock, The Tomb, Treyarch's new zombies map for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has recently released, and it's fine. That's it. That's all I have to say about it. It's fine. It's a completely and utterly playable map from start to finish. It is fine. The art design is a step up, and some people have been saying that they consider it to be the single best art style wise map that has released since Black Ops 4, and I will be inclined to agree with the community, not because I think this map is an incredible feat or an accomplishment, but because when you've been given slop for so long, when someone finally decides to give you a half decent home cooked meal, you're going to think that the home cooked meal is some of the greatest food you've ever eaten in your entire life. There's a common sentiment that I've seen across the community that The Tomb is DLC 1.5. For those who were not around during the time period, typically within a DLC cycle of Call of Duty for zombies, we are trained to expect at least 4 maps. And then post-launch, or 4 maps in total. Okay, I had it right. So 4 maps post-launch. This has typically been the pattern, except a couple of times, notably Call of Duty Black Ops 3 featuring Zombie Chronicles, which was a remake of past maps, along with, I believe, the Resurrection Pack in Call of Duty Black Ops, which also features remake maps from the past. Now, I have seen no sentiment from Treyarch that this is supposed to be recognized as DLC 1.5. The closest thing that I have seen from Treyarch is that this map was inspired by Liberty Falls, and personally I do think that this is a mistake. If this truly is meant to be a holdover until DLC 2 or map 2 post-launch wise is supposed to be released, then I think wholeheartedly and honestly Treyarch could have kept this. This map, I don't want to use the word low effort because I feel like that's a little bit of an insult. I can see the effort, okay? We have new zombie models for the first time in them, actually since Black Ops 6 release, and they genuinely look phenomenal. And on that note, let's talk about some of the good in this map before I fly off the rails. First and foremost, I want to commend the team for this spawn room. I really thoroughly do enjoy the spawn room and the vibrantness and all of the colors on this map. It's been a while since we've had a map that truly feels as if we are in a different type of environment, from a facility, from a town, assets that are easily reused. And I see a lot of the community talk about reuse assets, and I feel like this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what actually the issue is. See, Call of Duty Zombies is a byproduct of reuse assets from the very original Nocturne Toten days, okay? And reuse assets are not the problem to me. Throughout the entire franchise, you can spot campaign assets, okay? One of the common talking points I remember when DLC 3, Go Rod Krovi, was releasing for Black Ops 6 is the common comparisons between the Russian section from Call of Duty World at War. I might have had that mixed up, but I do remember that a lot of the campaign influences appeared. Ascension primarily being a mix of a campaign and multiplayer map. I could be wrong on that. It's been years since I looked into it, but regardless, reusing assets is not the problem. It's reusing design elements. The reason why all those maps feel different, despite the fact that they're reusing some same assets, some textures and all that, is because Treyarch laid out the map and gave the map its own unique identity. So when we come into Black Ops 6 and we see, hey, a lot of these maps feel samey, okay? We're in a town like Liberty Falls, and it doesn't really feel like we're anywhere outside of a multiplayer map. The same thing I've seen repeated a lot for Cold War is that, hey, these maps really don't feel like they have their own unique identity that stands out from the rest. And while I'm happy to say that I will probably remember The Tomb for having at least a visual fidelity, that isn't enough to me. It's not about reuse assets, it's about reuse design elements. The design elements that are reoccurring within this map, obviously we have the return of the ice staff seen for the first time since Origins. We have the return of the shock mimic from, I guess, Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, which someone in my last video pointed out to me. We have the returning doppelgas and amalgams. We have reused design elements. We have an upgrade quest for the ice staff. These are commonly referred to as some of the issues with this map. And to be utterly honest with you, as someone who's spent at least a little bit of time, okay, I don't think my opinion will shift on this topic because I am so certain of it, is that, again, Repeating what I said earlier, if this is supposed to be DLC 1.5 or map 1.5, then wholeheartedly, I feel like Treyarch should have advocated that more instead of saying that this map was inspired by Liberty Falls. Now, something that I've learned by taking argumentative English classes in college is that you can really use data in any way, shape, or form to support an argument or a stance. Data can be interpreted in many ways. So if you're going to interpret data, you have to make sure that the way you are spinning it is in the correct way. Activision more than likely looked at Liberty Falls and saw the high player counts and assumed that this is the map that Treyarch should be developing, when in reality, let's talk about why Liberty Falls might have higher player counts than the other maps in the game. We know that zombies has been seen as an easy way for multiplayer and Warzone players to play a slightly more relaxed and carefree mode that allows them to level up their weapons. Along with that, Black Ops 6, since Cold War, has begun to implement it a lot more fidelity and a lot more vibe within their camos, to the point where, hey, a lot of people are coming in with the sole intentions on grinding out these camos so they can have a complete collection. Liberty Falls is the single best map and still is the greatest map for grinding camos because of the way that it is set up, the layout. Liberty Falls, you can get set up relatively quickly. There's a lot less resistance. Liberty Falls is a very small map. You don't have very many big purchases. Along with that, you don't really have a customizable experience. So to compare both Liberty Falls and the Tomb, both of them are small maps in scale, featuring a very short Easter egg quest where upgrading and obtaining the wonder weapon is primarily your main focus for the first half of the quest, along with returning enemies. And let's talk about returning enemies. This point has been brought up a lot within the community, and something that I actually did not know is that for a good chunk of change, the overall zombies community, or within every game, a new enemy type or a new variant was introduced to completely shake things up in a way that hasn't been done before. So, in Nocturne Totem, we had the launch of zombies. In Verrucht, they brought in super sprinters. Shinonuma brought in hellhounds. Darius didn't bring anything to the table. Kino brought Nova crawlers. Fi brought the Pentagon Thief. Ascension brought monkeys. Shang brought monkeys again, but allowed them to do something different, and instead of sealing your perks, they were allowed to change the power-ups on the map. Call of the Dead introduced George Romero. Moon introduced the astronaut fella. Transit introduced denizens. Die Rise, I believe, had jumping jacks. Buried, we had the witch. Mob of the Dead, we had the Brutus, the Warden. Origins, we had the introduction of the Panzer. Let's jump to Black Ops 3. We had the Margwa, we had the Apothegans. Dreisendrach, it brought a new variation of the Panzer. Zetsubo no Shima, we had the Thrashers and the Spiders. Go Rod Krovi, the Valkyries, the Manglers. If you get what I'm saying, is that almost every game introduced a new element, and even though we had something occurring like the Hellhounds, these were typically inoffensive additions depending on the game. Sometimes they could be super aggressive and really annoying to deal with, but in other circumstances, they can just be considered all right. The thing with everything that I mentioned before is that it was never really spammed or overused, or if it was used often, it was something that the community generally was fine with. The thing about the enemy reuse in Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is mostly the fact that no one likes the vermin, no one likes the parasites, no one likes the manglers, no one likes the abominations, but yet we are constantly forced to have to deal and reconcile with the fact that these enemies are consistently reappearing throughout the entirety of the life cycle. I guarantee you that if the player base didn't come out and say, hey, we do not like mangler spam, we would have seen the manglers on more maps. I'm saying this right now as a January 30th. Please do not be wrong on this. And the thing with something about the amalgams is that the amalgams were introduced, I believe, on Terminus. But the problem with Terminus, at least in my personal opinion, and why that map hasn't seen as much playtime, is partly because of how big and expansive it is, but also my personal opinion, the wonder weapon kind of blows. It really does. I don't like Terminus simply because of that. Now, let me ask you something, dear viewer. If we ignore the swords, the best wonder weapons have been from past games. The ice staff is still as broken as it was in Origins, if not a little bit better, because this game has a health cap, along with the jet gun coming back and being, hey, we removed this feature to self-destruct itself and instead gave them a big blast attack. and we allowed you to upgrade it so it can get progressively better. These changes allowed these weapons to shine way more than they did in the original game, and by these weapons I'm talking primarily about the jet gun, because the ice staff was completely fine in Origins. Along with that, something that I kind of thought, or a common sentiment that I've seen throughout the community, is that they believe that the Tomb was going to be an Origins remake. Now, the community for a long time has had an issue of buying into the hype from YouTubers alike, and I'm not shocked. But also, to that same community, I have to ask, how long are you going to continuously ask for remakes and reimaginings of past ideas? You know, there's been quite a few leaks and rumors about Treyarch wanting to reintroduce Premise into the next game, and I have to ask and wonder, how is the community going to respond to this, considering how much they've wanted to see something like a Transit remake? If you remember, during the Liberty Falls cycle of us receiving new information about the map, a good chunk of the community thought that we were going to get a Transit remake just because the jet gun was going to reappear. I assume that same subset of the community looked at this ice staff returning and assumed that we were going to get an Origins remake. Now, to be honest with you, the ice staff being the only returning wonder weapon in this map is completely and utterly bogus. The ice staff upgrade process in this map I ended up comparing to Origins. Now, this Origins run, I will full admit, that is incredibly scuffed. I spent about 30 minutes of attempts just trying to get used to the map again before having an attempt that fully made it all the way through. And in comparing that to the Tomb run, I found that you could more or less grab the ice staff in about the same amount of time, 25 minutes in the original Origins and about 20 or so minutes within the new map. Upgrading the staff follows that same wavelength, with the only major difference being between the round numbers and the general flow. See, something that Origins really prevails in is that it gives you a sense of freedom most zombies maps kind of don't really do. Once you make it out of the no man's land, I believe that's the name for the building after Gen 2. But once you make it out of there, the map really opens up and you got a lot of individual things you can work on. You can work on building the Maxis Drone, obtaining the shield. Hey, you got 4 staffs to build. Oh, you want some Thunder Fists? Go get some Thunder Fists. Also, you probably more than likely have more generators to turn on. You have a lot of options and things you want to work on, so you truly have the ability to go in any direction you choose in. The thing with the map about the tomb, is that despite the map wanting to force replayability upon the player by just simply being an easy access, low cost, low barrier of entry map, that freedom is kind of lost. See, the Tomb's Easter egg primarily consumes of you obtaining the ice staff, upgrading it, and then doing four enemy trials, and then you do the boss fight where you fight. Spoilers, by the way. Oopsies. You fight the Sentinel artifact that is just a laser that turns into 2, then 3, then 4, and you got to go fight a bunch of special enemies. Yeah, you know what, this map, that section low-key reminded me of the boss fight in Revelations, or at least the prelude to the boss fight, except that one at least had a cool arena. And while I will fully admit that the Dark Aether section of the Tomb looks phenomenal, mostly because it's been a while since we've seen that full-on aesthetic, and when you compare it to the rest of the game, that looks dreary and deeply inoffensive. Yeah, this kind of sucks. I'm gonna keep it real with you, brethren. This is no bueno. It's not good. Now, is the Tomb the worst map ever? Nah, it's really not. Like I've said before, this map is completely fun and playable from start to finish and doesn't have anything that's an egregiously bad design element. In fact, another thing I want to praise the Treyarch team for is that the side Easter eggs in this map are the best they've ever been. I don't think that's a hot take. I think things like, hey, we have a guaranteed way for you to get the ray gun to help with that final step when you're building the ice staff initially, when you have to do the defense. Phenomenal. That free pack-a-punch, hey, it helps a lot, especially with that big defense thing. Now, if you want a quick tip, solo players, that I've learned is that low-key, I go up to the thing, I drop a sentry turret, I let the turret cook along with trying to support it. It's a really easy and simple solution instead of just going to go get a mangler injection. But above all else, it's fine. And for that to be what I have to say about the next installment in Treyarch is really upsetting. The Tomb, all in all, despite being hyped up in Citadel Day More as our next connection, is a footnote. Even within the map, nothing in that map that we experience or learn really matters, and part of it could be due to the ongoing AI writer strike, the AI usage in Call of Duty Black Ops 6, along with them preventing to, write in protections for the voice queue. I've seen a theory posted around that a lot of the lines utilized in this map were recorded under the guise of something generic. It's like, hey, we might go to a tomb-like area in this game, so let's talk about some general lines about this. Nothing really feels specific to the map, and this is even more shown in the ending boss fight, or the ending cutscene, where we get an exfil cutscene akin to we're fucking in Cold War, and then we get Sam yapping at us with some people call it AI visuals, some people say it's harkening back to the little cutscenes we had in Black Ops, or not Black Ops, in Modern Warfare. And regardless, she yaps at us, drops the next location, and is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna betray the guys. Actually, I'm not really Samantha, I've been lying. And to me, this whole reveal feels like nothing, because what is the point? And for us to be 4 maps deep and not have anything of motivation for Richtofen, what's going on with Samantha in the Dark Ether? Is this going to be another Black Ops 3 scenario where a lot of the culmination of the story is wrapped up within the last 2 maps, and we're going to have an unfitting conclusion yet again? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. This is very, very disappointing and disheartening. But to talk about some bad things about the map, in my last video I made, I talked about depth perception's inclusion into this game being a huge red flag. And I'm happy to say I was cooking, because depth perception truly adds nothing to this map. If you wanted to bring back a perk, you could have brought back Tombstone. It would have fit with the theme of the map. And hey, you could have probably added a couple augments to it to make it good. But I'm so sick and tired of Treyarch adding fan favorite perks, because who likes depth perception? But adding the perks to the game, completely gutting what makes the perk good, and trying to repackage it to you as an augment. I think that is lame and lazy, and depth perception is the biggest example of this. Along with Vulture's A, a little bit sad about what they did to Vulture's A, but hey, Vulture's A is still a valid perk in my book. I've seen a lot of people talk about the upgrade process of the Ice Staff. Now, to compare these two, even though both maps set out to do different things, I find myself vastly preferring the Ice Staff upgrade in Origins, simply because you got a lot more freedom of things to do, and each step you're doing something completely different. The RNG in Origins has been not necessarily a hot topic, but I know a lot of people who don't like Origins often mention the RNG mechanics within the map, primarily being the, hey, you gotta collect 3 pieces of the Ice Staff while it's snowing, and especially if you want to achieve building the staff before round 8, when the Panzer comes in, you're gonna have to get a little bit lucky. And while I understand people might not mess with that, to me it keeps you on your toes and keeps you having to make split decisions, especially when you think about the old point system. That is primarily why it might have taken me a little bit longer to obtain the Ice Staff in Origins on Black Ops 2, because with the way the point system is, you're going to be spending a little bit more time in between rounds when you're point building, instead of how Black Ops 6 incentivizes you to go. But see, another area where the tomb low-key falls off for me is that a lot of this map is just, they could have just renamed it the lockdown map, because you're going to be locked down doing the majority of what's going on. To even obtain the Ice Staff, you got to go through 2 lockdowns. You got 4 lockdowns as part of the main quest, and then you got a boss fight on top of that. It's just, it reeks of just being, hey, we do not have time to fully flesh out an idea. I would have much rather all the things presented in this map being combined with the next major release. This map truly does feel like a custom map that was made by someone. And if this was a custom map, I think this would be a phenomenal custom map made by someone. And I mean custom map in the sense that, hey, if this is something that someone made in the community, this would be great, because they aren't an official dev. But when I'm looking at official devs who are paid to do this, and this is what I receive, this is what I got when I put $70 in, quite frankly, Treyarch, I want my $70 back. But regardless, this has primarily been a rant video, me talking about why I low-key don't mess with the tomb. Yeah, we bit sleepy, we bit tired. Hopefully Soapy can edit this one. If not, I'll probably do it myself. But go ahead, leave a like, leave a comment if you mess with the tomb. And again, if you love the tomb, more power to you, gang. But me personally, I'm not a fan of the tomb in a genuine sense. I think Treyarch could have kept this map if this is what we were going to receive. If Activision was knocking on the door and say, hey, we need something, they could have told them to wait. But hey, if you like the tomb, you like the tomb. I think the map is inoffensive, and I think it's fine. I think a lot of the community is being a little bit reactionary, but that's always been true for the community. Chain Chomp, we out. Yomp.